Hello, I've just come back from the World Seniors Championship in Kuala Lumpur. With one round to go, these were the standings. I lead by one game and 225 points of spread. The only way I can not become World Seniors Champion is if my opponent in the final game, Odette Rio, beats me by a margin of at least 113 points. So my goal going into this final game is to win, and if not to win, then to lose by fewer than 113 points. Let's see what happened. My opponent starts with wheat, and my rack is shown below, AIIOQSW. Wheat does not take an S. So let's have a look at the candidate moves. I thought about playing Y across the top of wheat, but that would retain the Q. And the move which I made was to exchange 6, keeping the S. Let's simulate that. And here we have the results. Now these results are ranked by win percentage, which may not be the correct ranking in terms of my goal, because I'm not trying to win the game. I'm trying to either win the game or lose by less than 113 points. However, we do have a win percent stat, which is how this is ranked, and maybe the valuation column is of more significance. Either way, my move, exchanging 6, keeping the S, comes out as second in this list, and the alternative of Y, H7, okay, blocking the hooks for wheat, comes out at a similar valuation, and the valuation is really a proxy for expected points gain by making the move. So it looks like there's not much between Y and exchanging, and the other position for Y, which was this one, is significantly worse, possibly because it provides a lot of opportunities in row 6 for a high-scoring tile above AE, followed by a vowel. And that was part of my reasoning for exchanging. So that's what I did. So my opponent's rack was this. I only know her racks when she bingos. So this was her rack. And these were her options. And she went with 1,000 down from the T. So none of the ones listed here. And that's a great start for my opponent, who is now on 90 points to my 0. And remember, she is aiming to beat me by 113. Well, she's well on her way to doing that. My next rack after changing is this. And the only bingo is worksome. And I play it. I'm not going to simulate that. I think it's fairly clearly the best move. I wasn't entirely sure of worksome, but I played it and it's good. Now, opponent draws the second blank, and again has a ton of bingos. And, well, interestingly, does not play any of these placements for pennant, but actually plays pennant across here. And I think that's good from her perspective, because she's trying to keep the board as open as possible to maximise her chances of bingoing or scoring her way to a victory by over 113 points. I think my goal, or the goal of anyone who's trying to lose by a particular margin or less, is to try and keep the board tight. And certainly after this game, a number of people said to me, why didn't you just keep the board tight? Well, this is one of the situations which arises when you have a lot of early bingos, and certainly Odette's choice of placement for pennant is a good one in terms of making it very difficult for me to close the board down. So she plays pennant here, and now has established a 60-point lead. This is my rack. Wow, geez, for 70. That would have been nice. Across, down there. What I do is, okay, not massively worse, but I'm just noticing geese underneath pennant. Why isn't that appearing? Ah, because I've only got one E. So this was the move I made, Zoa, which I think is probably, in terms of rack leave, probably slightly inferior to G's, even though it's got superficially a better vowel consonant balance. I think the G and the W don't go well together. Anyway, let's have a look at the simulation. So there we go. That's 500 simulations or iterations in the simulation, and you can see the win percentage is fairly similar between these top three choices, and the valuation, there's only a few points in it. Zoa, I think, has a slight merit over G's in that it takes out some of the floaters in 1000. So although the board is wide open, it should still meet my goal to tighten it where I can, and I think Zoa achieves that, so that looks a reasonable play. And now if we look at the score, my opponent has had 2 early bingos in 1000 and Pennant, but I actually lead by 4 points, so I'm in a very strong position right now. And my opponent has this rack and finds Allegory, which she plays down from the A of Pennant for her 3rd back-to-back bingo. And that puts her into a 68-point lead, so pretty much halfway to her goal. I have this rack. Wow, unjive, that looks nice. Where's that? Across there, but it does take a D and an S, but it sorts the rack out. Now, my play was Ngui across the bottom here. I'm trying to split up the V and the W. I would have liked to have played off 2 of UVW. I couldn't see a way of doing that, although I note unjive would achieve that. So let's see how this simulates. Okay, that's 500 iterations, and it's not looking too good. Ngui, it's 9 points worse than unjive. Winning percentages, not terribly much between them, but as mentioned, that's not a particularly relevant stat in this game. Unjive is, I don't like it because my opponent is trying to increase her score, and that gives her the opportunity of sticking a D or the S on the end, maybe a high-scoring tile on this double letter square, and keeping her scoring going. Ngui doesn't offer my opponent scoring opportunities. The N isn't a massively useful final letter. Any bingo down in column B will open up column A, and it's inhibiting slightly the use of the D in 1000. So that was my play there. I've got a printout of the final board, so I make sure I'm putting the plays in the right spot. Opponent plays Jaw, and I don't have her racks for her non-bingo plays, so we can't simulate those. But she scores 48 points, and at this point she is 93 points ahead. But I'm on turn. I have this rack, and I play Drive for 27 points, burning the V, taking out this triple word square, not providing any new bingo lanes. J11 Vug onto the G of Allegory, leaves a nice rack leave, but for a much lower score. So let me simulate these plays, and here we get the results. And Drive is about 3 equity points worse than Vug, which isn't a great many. So I think Drive is fine. Now opponent plays down onto the first E of Wheat, Affiliate, which turns over some pretty non-bingo-y tiles in terms of duplicate I's and an F, and keeps the board open. A particularly dangerous spot is column O because Pennant takes an S. So that was a huge worry for me throughout this game. We can see here that there's still 1S to come. In fact, that's it, just the 1S to come. So it's likely to be decisive in terms of who gets it. Affiliate is a good move because it keeps the board open from Odette's perspective. And now she has an 86-point lead. So not too far away from her goal. But I'm on turn. This is my rack. And I play Pup. Let's see how it sims. So it sims best, and there are some other moves which have a valuation which is fairly close. but pup looks okay. It scores well, and it plays off the non-bingo-y tiles and leaves an okay rack leave. And it slightly helps to cut the board down, but the floaters in Allegory are not floaters for a bingo. However, there were no parallel plays to filiate, which sorted the rack out in the way that pup does. And I need to balance closing the board down with keeping a decent rack leave, because if I leave a bad rack leave, I'm really hampering my ability to score. And there are two ways of restricting an opponent's winning margin. One is to shut the board down, and the other is to keep scoring yourself. And you need to balance those elements. So I play pup. Opponent has this rack and plays battled. And now my opponent is 132 points in the lead, which is above her target of 113. So I'm in a tricky spot. This is my rack, and I play Fibro, and my reasons for that were just scoring well, leaving an okay rack leave, and taking out a good scoring spot for my opponent. And that seems best. Opponent plays cat, and she's now 141 points in the lead, which puts me in a difficult position, because should I be trying to close the board down and try and claw back that 20-point differential between her current lead and the 113 lead that I'm aiming to get her below? Or should I be keeping the board open to try and outscore her and reduce her lead by scoring more than her? And the choice of strategy depends very much on the rack that you have. This was the rack that I had, and my play doesn't appear down here, probably because it's not very good. But I play loin, and my concern was the S. My opponent had just played battled and cat. I felt that if she had the S and stuck it on the end of pennant, it would be the end of the game, whereas loin kept me alive. I didn't regard the 130-point margin versus the 113 margin as being very great, and therefore I decided to take out that S hook and just try and outscore her with the tiles that came my way. So let me add this to the list of moves. And in terms of valuation, it comes significantly below some of these choices. Now, the best play in terms of win percentage is Uni. Well, I guess that sorts the rack out to some extent. Uncini, quite nice in terms of turning over tiles if you're trying to draw the S. Uric, again, sorts out the rack. And Curio, but none of the alternatives take out this S hook for pennant. And that's what motivated me to play loin. Opponent plays Miney. This is my rack. And now I've drawn the final S. So what to do about that? Well, what I decide to do is play ruck. I'm now 147 points behind, so I need to close down the margin by about 30 to 40 points. There is an H out there, but ruck certainly takes an S. I'm not sure if ruck takes an H, but it certainly takes an S, and I've got an S. Maybe not massively useful since the S is not in last place. But I was splitting up the duplicate C, getting rid of the non-bingo EU, and providing a selfish hook with the S. What I don't like about this play is the incredibly low score. Now, I13. Corey's, that's pretty good. It does burn the S, but you're getting 30 points from it, which would have taken me to 321. Just 107 behind. I didn't like ruck at the time, and I have no warm feelings towards it in the aftermath of the game. It just feels too weak. It's not setting up a good enough S hook, and it's not scoring enough. So I play ruck. Opponent plays Bine and Eloin. It now has a 154-point lead. And now this is my rack. And I've drawn the X, which looks pretty good because there's this spot next to the A for an X, and there are two E's unseen. However, I have mistile tracked and actually believe there to be no E's left in the bag. So what I do is I play sacks down from the ruck. There for 36 points. And I'm hoping that that is going to put me into a position where I can catch my opponent on score. I'm just aiming for that 113-point margin. Let's simulate this. So sacks coming out with a valuation of 34. The best plays Axe at N1 for 32, retaining the S. I think that would have been a better play even without the mistile tracking. And Ox also in the same spot. But I play sacks. And now I am 118 points behind, so it's really close. Opponent plays Chi for 35 points and is now in a 153-point lead. My rack. And I play over. Now, at this point, 7 unseen tiles. The bag must be empty. Let's just ask a championship player. And not surprisingly, none of these plays wins. I am far too far behind for that. Fiver maximizes the valuation, and that's leaving ochre, okay, which may play out somewhere. My play of over doesn't feature here. Okay, so maybe the plays up here are blocking something big by my opponent. But I play over. Opponent's rack, and her best play is Sud, which is why plays like Fiver and Parallel to Affiliate were being suggested to block that. But Odette doesn't play Sud. She plays Sag somewhere. Yeah, here. So at this point, I am 147 points behind. And I have this rack CEIR. Sire and Rice are the outs. Now, I don't see either of those outs. Would they have been enough? Evaluation of 28 points. I am 147 behind. Wow. I think that would reduce the losing margin to 119. So I think my cause is lost at this point. I'm 147 points behind. I can, by going out with either of these plays, I can reduce the margin to 119. However, what I do is this. I play Re. This is my opponent's rack. And that guaranteed loss after going out does guarantee the loss. However, if I go out in 2, I could still win if my opponent plays suboptimally. So let's have a look at her plays here. And she plays Undid, which is only 1 point suboptimal. And at this point, I am 143 points behind. So I need to score about 30. Well, I need to score 28, I think, to lose by 1. And there's just nothing remotely like that on offer. And I go out with Ick. So that's how I nearly became World Seniors Champion, but didn't. And I haven't analysed this game before. It has stayed in my bag since coming back a couple of days ago. And I thought it would be fun to analyse the game live on camera and see what I missed. And I was actually expecting there to be a few more howlers than there was. I know, feeling that the situation was very pressurised, and certainly the pressure was cranked up by Odette's barrage of early bingos, and then when the lead expanded to beyond 113 points, it was pretty desperate stuff. I think there were definitely some weak moves there, which is fairly normal for me. I think Ruck probably the standout weak play. But anyway, it was an interesting game to be a part of. It didn't go my way. Many congratulations to Odette for her stunning win and for being world champion. I look forward to engaging with her in battle in future and to attending future World Seniors Championships. So I hope you enjoyed that last game analysis from the World Seniors Championship in Kuala Lumpur. And I will see you next time.